$3.7 billion. That was the cost of the B-29 Super Fortress program. More expensive than the atomic bomb itself. More expensive than any weapons program in World War II. One aircraft from that program, a B-29 named Enola Gay, would drop an atomic bomb on Hiroshima, Japan, killing 78,000 people in seconds and changing human history forever. This is that story. The B-29 Super Fortress was not just another bomber. It was the most advanced aircraft ever built when it first flew in 1942. Boeing designed it to carry massive bomb loads over extraordinary distances at high altitude. The aircraft had four Wright R-3350 engines, each producing 2,200 horsepower. It could fly 3,250 miles without refueling. It could carry 20,000 pounds of bombs. It had a pressurized cabin, allowing crews to fly at 30,000 feet without oxygen masks. It had remote-controlled gun turrets operated by gunners sitting inside the fuselage looking through computerized sights. The B-29 was a technological marvel. It was also the most expensive gamble the United States military ever made. The development program cost $3.7 billion. Adjusted for inflation, that equals $84 billion in 2025 money. The Manhattan Project, which developed the atomic bomb, cost only $2 billion. The B-29 program cost more than creating nuclear weapons. Each individual B-29 cost between $600,000 and $1 million, depending on the model. Early models required 157,000 man-hours to build. As production improved, that number dropped to 30,000 man-hours. But even then, each bomber required thousands of additional modification hours after completion. Boeing, Bell Aircraft, and Martin Aircraft produced 3,970 B-29 bombers between 1943 and 1946. The United States was betting everything on this aircraft. The B-29 was designed for one specific purpose: destroy Japan. American military strategists understood that Japan could not be invaded easily. The Japanese home islands are defended by millions of soldiers, thousands of aircraft, and a population willing to fight to the death. Invading Japan would cost hundreds of thousands of American casualties. The alternative was strategic bombing. Destroy Japanese cities, factories, shipyards, and industrial capacity from the air, forcing Japan to surrender without invasion. The B-17 and B-24 bombers that had devastated Germany could not reach Japan from any available airbase. Japan was too far away. The B-29 Super Fortress was the only aircraft with the range and payload to execute the strategic bombing campaign. B-29 operations began in June 1944 from bases in China and India. The first raids were disasters. Engines overheated and caught fire. Mechanical failures were constant. Crews were forced to make emergency landings. Some B-29s crashed on takeoff because they were overloaded with fuel and bombs. The Wright R-3350 engines were unreliable and prone to catastrophic failure. Crews called them the engine that came back from the dead because they would fail, restart, fail again, and occasionally restart again before finally dying. Despite these problems, B-29 raids continued. By November 1944, the United States had captured the Mariana Islands, including Saipan, Tinian, and Guam. These islands were 1,500 miles from Tokyo, within B-29 range. American engineers built the largest airbases in the world on these tiny Pacific islands. Runways were carved out of jungle and coral. Thousands of tons of concrete were poured. Fuel storage tanks, ammunition bunkers, maintenance hangars, and crew quarters were constructed. By early 1945, hundreds of B-29 bombers were stationed in the Marianas, ready to burn Japan. The bombing campaign was led by General Curtis LeMay, one of the most ruthless and effective military commanders in American history. LeMay understood that precision bombing was not working. Japanese factories were dispersed throughout residential areas. Bombing them with high-explosive bombs required pinpoint accuracy that was impossible to achieve from 30,000 feet. LeMay made a decision that would kill hundreds of thousands of Japanese civilians. He ordered his B-29s to conduct low-altitude firebombing raids at night using incendiary bombs. Japanese cities were made of wood and paper. They would burn. The first major firebombing raid occurred on March 9, 1945. 334 B-29 bombers attacked Tokyo with incendiary bombs. The raid created a firestorm. Winds exceeded 100 miles per hour. Temperatures reached 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit. 16 square miles of Tokyo burned to the ground. An estimated 100,000 people died in one night. More than died in the atomic bombing of Hiroshima. LeMay's bombers continued burning Japanese cities. Nagoya, Osaka, Kobe, Yokohama. 67 cities were attacked. Millions of Japanese civilians were left homeless. Japan's industrial capacity collapsed. But Japan did not surrender. American military planners estimated that invading Japan would cost 1 million American casualties. President Harry Truman, who became president after Franklin Roosevelt died in April 1945, faced an impossible decision: continue the conventional bombing campaign and invasion, costing millions of lives on both sides, or use a new weapon that could end the war immediately. That weapon was the atomic bomb. The Manhattan Project had successfully tested an atomic bomb in July 1945 in New Mexico. The explosion was equivalent to 20,000 tons of TNT. Scientists were certain the weapon would work. 2 bombs were available for combat use. One was a uranium bomb called Little Boy. The other was a plutonium bomb called Fat Man. The decision was made to use both bombs against Japan if necessary. The first target was Hiroshima. The second target was Nagasaki. The 509th Composite Group was created specifically to deliver atomic bombs. The unit was commanded by Colonel Paul Tibbets, an experienced B-29 pilot. The 509th trained for months on a remote airbase in Utah, practicing high-altitude precision bombing with dummy bombs that weighed the same as Little Boy. The crews did not know what they were training for. They knew only that their mission was classified and critically important. In June 1945, the 509th deployed to Tinian Island. 15 B-29 bombers were modified to carry atomic bombs. The bomb bay doors were reinforced. Special release mechanisms were installed. The aircraft were painted bare metal to reduce weight and increase speed. On August 6, 1945, at 2:45 a.m., a B-29 named Enola Gay took off from North Field on Tinian. The aircraft was named after Tibbets' mother. The crew consisted of 12 men. Colonel Paul Tibbets was the pilot and aircraft commander. Captain Robert Lewis was the co-pilot. Major Thomas Farabee was the bombardier. Captain Theodore Van Kirk was the navigator. Navy Captain William Parsons was the weaponeer responsible for arming the bomb during flight. The bomb, Little Boy, weighed 9,700 pounds. It was 10 feet long and 28 inches in diameter. It contained 141 pounds of uranium-235. When detonated, it would release energy equivalent to 15,000 tons of TNT. Enola Gay flew for 6 hours toward Hiroshima. 2 other B-29s accompanied the mission. The great artiste carried scientific instruments to measure the blast. A third B-29 carried photographers. At 8:15 a.m., Enola Gay reached Hiroshima. The city was clearly visible below. Weather was perfect. Farabee, the bombardier, looked through his Norden bomb sight and centered the crosshairs on the Aioi Bridge in downtown Hiroshima. At 8:15 and 17 seconds, Little Boy was released. Enola Gay immediately turned hard right and dove to gain speed and distance from blast. The crew wore special welding goggles to protect their eyes. 43 seconds later, Little Boy detonated 1,900 feet above Hiroshima. The explosion created a blinding flash of light visible for hundreds of miles. The temperature at the hypocenter reached 1 million degrees Celsius. Everything within 1 mile of the blast was vaporized. Buildings were obliterated. 70,000 people died instantly. Another 70,000 would die from radiation sickness and injuries over the following weeks and months. A mushroom cloud rose 40,000 feet into the sky. The crew of Enola Gay felt the shockwave, even though they were 11 miles away. The tail gunner, Staff Sergeant Robert Caron, watched the mushroom cloud rise and said, "My God, what have we done?" The devastation was total. Hiroshima, a city of 350,000 people, was effectively destroyed. Fires burned for days. Survivors suffered horrific burns and radiation sickness. Hospitals were overwhelmed. There was no clean water, no food, no medicine. The Japanese government did not immediately understand what had happened. They knew Hiroshima had been destroyed, but they did not know how. American leaflets dropped on other Japanese cities warned that more cities would be destroyed unless Japan surrendered. Japan did not surrender. 3 days later, on August 9th, a second atomic bomb was dropped. The B-29 Boxcar, piloted by Major Charles Sweeney, carried Fat Man, the plutonium bomb. The primary target was Kakura, but clouds obscured the city. Sweeney diverted to the secondary target, Nagasaki. At 11:02 a.m., Fat Man detonated over Nagasaki, killing an estimated 40,000 people instantly. Tens of thousands more would die later. Japan surrendered on August 15, 1945. World War II was over. The moral questions surrounding the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki remain debated to this day. Was it necessary to use nuclear weapons against civilian populations? Could Japan have been forced to surrender through conventional means? These questions have no simple answers. What is certain is that the B-29 Enola Gay and the atomic bomb changed warfare forever. Nuclear weapons became the defining strategic reality of the Cold War. The threat of nuclear annihilation shaped international relations for decades. The B-29 superfortress itself had a remarkable service life. After World War II, B-29s participated in the Korean War, conducting strategic bombing raids against North Korea. The aircraft remained in service until the late 1950s when it was replaced by jet-powered bombers like the B-52 Stratofortress. Many B-29s were converted into tankers, reconnaissance aircraft, and research platforms. The last B-29 in American military service was retired in 1960. Enola Gay survived the war and was eventually restored and placed on display at the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C. The aircraft remains controversial. Some view it as a symbol of American technological achievement and the end of World War II. Others see it as a reminder of the horrors of nuclear warfare and the deaths of innocent civilians. Both perspectives are valid. The story of the B-29 Superfortress and Enola Gay illustrates the immense cost of war, both financial and human. The United States spent $3.7 billion developing an aircraft capable of destroying cities from the air. That aircraft delivered a weapon that killed more than 200,000 people in seconds. The moral weight of that decision is staggering. The crew of Enola Gay carried out their orders. They believed they were ending the war and saving lives. History will debate whether they were right.